to the Mississippi Board of Pharmacy Compliance Division's Bullpen Report. Today we have with us Lieutenant Robert Witten from the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics. And our topics for today are burglaries and robberies. Welcome, Lieutenant Witten.
Thanks for having me.
So first, let's get you to define a burglary and a robbery.
Sure. So easiest way to explain it would be a burglary typically happens with your business or building. So somebody is breaking into your business or your home in order to steal items. The robbery would be more if they're doing it to the individual. So using force or a threat of force in order to steal something from you as a person.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for us. As many of you know, we have decided to do the bullpen reports to try to help our licensees. And over the past few months, we've been seeing an increase in pharmacy burglaries and robberies. So we want to try to do some things to help you to remain diligent in making sure that you have security measures that are in place for your physical location and for your staff. So we'll get started with a few of those tips.
Assess security measures in place inside and outside your pharmacy, and check for potential weak spots.
So some of the ways you can do this with assessing your measures around your pharmacy is lighting, making sure you have adequate lighting outside of your business, as well as your alarm system, making sure that it has a battery backup option and then a cell phone backup option. That way if they cut phone lines or internet cables, you still have a way to notify your alarm company. And then checking your businesses for damages inside and outside that may be potential entry points.
Okay, does anybody else want to add anything to that part? Okay, thanks, Lieutenant Witten. Next, we'll move on.
Be sure that your security cameras are working and that you review the video surveillance for any blind spots and then make any adjustments if needed.
A great way to do this is to live view your camera system while you have another employee walk around the outside of your business. Check for any places that they could hide, any places that you're not able to see them, especially around dumpsters, shrubbery, hedges, or any unviewable areas.
Look at your windows, doors, and your drawer locks and so forth to make sure none are broken.
Review employee steps or facility plan of action in case of burglary or robbery.
And since we brought up robbery, in the event that somebody comes into your business and has a weapon, displays a weapon, or you have reason to believe they have a weapon, the best thing to do is just follow the instructions. Give them whatever they're asking for, whether it be money or drugs, and then use your cameras to try to get good view of them later. Maybe try to pay attention to which direction they go or any vehicles that they may get into. Do not try to follow them out of the business to try to get a good look at the tag of the vehicle. And in the event that they try to demand that you go with them when they leave, view this as a direct threat to your safety and then act whatever way you deem necessary.
Be extra careful to watch your surroundings going into and coming out of the pharmacy, especially after time change when it may be dark as you enter or leave. Remember, the buddy system is a good thing. If you don't have a buddy, make arrangements with your local law enforcement to be in the area as you start to leave or arrive.
And lastly, for this section, we want you to reach out to your local law enforcement agency to see if they are able to provide any additional tips or any additional support for you.
And I would develop good relationships with your local law enforcement. A lot of times you may have the same officer patrolling the area your business is in, and then develop good relationships with the detectives that may be coming in the event that something happens at your business.
Thanks, everyone. So a couple of questions that came out of just going through this section. Lieutenant Witten, what can you add to the discussion about alarm systems and call trees and notifications dealing with alarm systems?
Sure. A lot of times alarm companies have their own policies and procedures that they have to follow in the event they get an alarm notification. And many times that includes calling the property owner first to see if it was an accidental alarm or if it was an actual need for law enforcement to respond. One thing you can do is reach out to your alarm company and speak with them and see if they can change the hours or change the notification process for you. So with some companies, you could say if an alarm goes off between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., that they should automatically call law enforcement first before trying to call the property owner. In the event that it's an accident, that's fine. They can cancel law enforcement while they're on the way, but I would rather have law enforcement responding, especially late at night when nobody's supposed to be at the business. So speak with your alarm company, see what their policies are, see if there's ways to work with them in order to best fit your needs.
That's great information. We thank you for that. So we'll move on to our next section where we talked about things that you can put in place and measures that you can have in place for your location and for your staff. Next, we're going to talk about the event in which you may have a burglary or a robbery or an attempted burglary or robbery at your farm.
Notify local law enforcement of any burglaries or robberies, and do not enter the premises without law enforcement.
Not entering the premises before law enforcement gets there is a very important one. Obviously, if somebody is potentially still inside the business and you enter prior to law enforcement arrival, there's no telling what could happen. And also for evidentiary preservation, we don't want to disturb anything that may have been touched, stepped on, moved. Let law enforcement get there first. Let them clear the building to make sure everything's safe before you ever enter into the premises.
Report your pharmacy burglaries and robberies and any losses to the Mississippi Board of Pharmacy by calling your agent or calling the board office at 601-899-8880, or you can email us at compliance@mbp.ms.gov. Please do the same for any attempted burglaries or robberies also.
So we haven't always harped on the attempted burglaries and robberies, but we have been asking for that information lately as well. Within the past month or so, we've tried to communicate that clearly, that not only do we want the actual burglaries and robberies, but we want information on any attempted burglaries and robberies as well. Lieutenant Whitten, how does that help your division with handling burglaries and robberies?
Sure. So we have actually ran into this once or twice here recently where a pharmacy may have had the front glass broken out, but no actual entry was made into the business. It was not reported initially, and we heard about it later. Come to find out, the way they gained entry into that pharmacy was an exact match for the way they broke into a different pharmacy where they did get controlled substances. So we're able to start tying the locations where these were taking place and the groups that are occurring. As well as, it's important to remember, the attempt to break into a place is still a crime as gaining entry into the place.
Thank you for clarifying that, and so hopefully that will help our licensees to know that not only do we need the information on the actual burglaries and robberies, but the information for attempts is collected as well in order to see if there are patterns and any help that could be to law enforcement.
Do a complete controlled substance inventory and audit.
Notify DEA of any losses and submit the DEA 106 form.
If you have experienced a burglary, robbery, or any attempted burglary or robbery, contact your camera surveillance company immediately and have them obtain the footage for potential law enforcement use. Please do not attempt this yourself unless you have been specifically trained to do so. You really don't want to erase any evidence accidentally.
Awesome. So next I have a question for the group. Have any of you working as a pharmacist ever been robbed or burglarized while you were employed at a pharmacy?
I was armed robbed twice within a 9-month period. You need to have a thought process of what you would do if it did happen. But when it happens, a lot of times, a lot of that goes out the window. Main thing is to be calm as possible. Give them what they want. Protect yourself is the main thing, because stuff is replaceable.
Okay. Well, here's something that I know that each of you have had experience with. Of the agents that we have currently, I know that each of you has had at least one permit that you inspect that has had a burglary or a robbery. As a matter of fact, there have been several this year, and I'll let Lieutenant Witten kind of elaborate on the numbers for a moment, and then if you guys have anything you want to add, just from the takeaways from the permits that you've had to deal with.
So I don't have the exact numbers right here with me, but I can tell you that since December 1st of 2023 up to today, we have had excess of 30 pharmacy burglaries or attempted burglaries that have happened, and they have spread from the northern part of the state all the way down to the coastal areas.
And that's an uptick. We've seen that it's happening more and more.
Absolutely. So last year, I believe we had, prior to December 1st, we had about 7 for the entire year, and now we're looking at over 30. We've been working very carefully and very diligently with local agencies. We're working with federal agencies. We're doing information sharing and gathering on a regular basis. So the more information we can get regarding any burglary or attempt burglary gives us the chance to identify possible crews, possible methods of entries, and it's just another charge that we can put onto them when we do catch them to try to prolong any prison sentence they may get to keep them from doing this.
And that makes sense. Do you guys have anything to add dealing with the permits that you have had or that you inspect that have had an attempt or either an actual burglary or robbery?
Just be sure to do your due diligence ahead of time, because if you're not ready when it happens, it's too late to start developing your policies and procedures. And as we've mentioned before, a lot of that kind of goes out the window, but you need to at least have a thought process of what you're going to do and the timeline that you need to do it with, when and if it happens.
As you're downloading video, surveillance video of your facility, don't just download the day the burglary happened. Go ahead and record or download as much as possible in case the criminals scoped your facility out or drove around it at night or drove around it on Sunday afternoons when no one was there. There may be better video of a car during daylight hours or a better video of a tag after hours than when they come back to do the burglary and have everything blacked out and covered up.
Biggest thing from a law enforcement side is the cameras. Verify they're working. And I say that because we have encountered it a few times where we would go to a burglary just to find out that either the hard drive was malfunctioning, so they had not checked it in a while and they didn't know the hard drive was malfunctioning, or the camera system itself was not working, or a specific camera on their system was not operational. So check your system, check it on a regular basis, make sure everything's functioning right. Every once in a while, just go and run the video back to, if you know how to, run the video back, make sure that it's actually saving the video. Just make sure it's working properly.
I think most of us have been in pharmacies that would tell us that they haven't checked their video surveillance since the day that it was put in. And we have some also that have fake cameras, and we're not saying that that's a no-no. Some people used to do that a lot as a deterrent for people that come in, but once it does happen, the fake cameras are not going to record anything that happens.
That's true. That's true. So I do know that once you report the burglary or the robbery, that there's some information that we would get from you here in the office. There's a form that we complete, and then we send that form on to our Bureau of Narcotics division so that they can follow up as well. We work very closely with them. We work very closely with Lieutenant Witten. To that form, we will be adding a couple of things like method of entry, because that will help with gathering data. Number of suspects, if you know the number of suspects or can see on camera the number of suspects. And also we'll add a box to that form that also lets them know, as we pass the information on, if you do have camera footage, because they will at some point need to see that camera footage. So lastly, I'll go back to Lieutenant Witten to see if there's any additional information that he would like to share with you, or doing a conclusion here.
Sure. Obviously, this is your business, your place of employment, place you work at, something that probably you're very passionate about. So taking the steps now to make sure that you've got everything covered, making sure your lighting's good, making sure your cameras are operational, making sure you have a plan of action in place in the event something should happen, is going to be important to try to help us in law enforcement on the back end. So definitely have all that in place. Make sure that you do everything you can to protect yourself, and obviously I think everybody understands some things you can't prevent, but the more you can have to help, the better the chance we have in law enforcement to possibly identify and bring people to justice.
So Lieutenant Witten, let's take a few minutes and discuss camera placements. What are your suggestions for placing cameras in a pharmacy to be able to detect if there's an intruder or movement or even activity from within the pharmacy?
Absolutely. So if you have a surveillance company that you're working with that's going to be installing the cameras, obviously you could rely on them and their expertise as far as where's the best place to put the cameras. If you're using a internet-based or personal DVR system that's going to be kept in the store or at home that you're going to be installing, the main focus needs to be entryways and exitways from your business, so doors, windows, definitely wherever you maintain your controlled substances. You just want to do everything you can to try to have as good of a field of view with your cameras as you can, with the primary focus being doorways in and out and where you maintain those controlled substances.
Okay, what are some other suggestions that you would have for maintaining cameras?
I would be very mindful of how long does my video record for. So if you have a DVR system, find out how long that video will be maintained on storage before it's rewritten. Or if you're working with a surveillance company, I would speak with them to find out how far back can they go to recover video footage. Make sure you know that in the event that law enforcement can't get to your store in the event of a burglary, break-in, robbery, that you can get the video, or that you know how long they have to get that video from you or from that surveillance company. Periodically checking your camera systems is very important, monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly within the year, to make sure that your hard drive is actually downloading and saving those video files, making sure your cameras are all working and operational, still covering the areas you want covered. So it's a great idea to go periodically and just look at the cameras, make sure they're covering the areas you want covered, and then just pick a date and time historically to go back and look at that video just to make sure that everything did get saved and downloaded properly, and make sure there's no hard drive failures or camera failures.
We thank Lieutenant Robert Witten for being with us today on our bullpen session. We hope that we have given you some information that is helpful, or reinforced information that you may have already known, and given you just another angle to see it from. Again, I want to reiterate that here at the Board of Pharmacy, we do work very closely with Lieutenant Witten and the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics. Once these attempted or even actual burglaries and robberies are reported to us, then that goes through an email or some type of communication to the Bureau of Narcotics, and they work very closely with your local law enforcement as well. So it is a team effort, and we want to do everything that we can to get the information to you on how you can prevent these things from happening. But in the event that it does happen, that you have an avenue, that you know there are people on the other side that are working, analyzing, and trying to figure out who's committing these crimes, and possibly being able to bring them to justice with as much information as we can get from you to give to local law enforcement and to our Bureau of Narcotics. We thank you again for listening in, and we hope that you are liking our bullpen sessions, and we hope that we are giving you something that can actually help you in your day-to-day life being employed at a pharmacy. Thank you.